Breathing.
Hey, DevNation, welcome back to another episode of the MindDevs podcast, where we discuss powerful ideas to help develop your mind, body, and soul. Today, we have Leslie Ehm. Leslie Ehm is a former TV host and advertising creative director turned training guru. She spent decades traveling the globe with her award-winning company, Combustion, working with executives and teams from top organizations, like Google, Disney, PepsiCo, ever heard of those companies, Uber, and so many more. She's turned technologists into creative forces, bankers into storytellers, and has brought a serious dose of badassness to boardrooms everywhere. Fueled by her unrelenting passion to unleash true human potential and based on her experience working with thousands of professionals from CEOs down to new grads, Leslie is also the author of Swagger, Unleash Everything You Are and Become Everything You Want. She now devotes much of her time working as a swagger coach and speaker. She's also a passionate amateur boxer and fighter for good. Welcome, Leslie.
Welcome. This is so fun to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for coming on. So, swagger coach. So, I've never heard someone with that title before. So, I guess I wanted to go ahead and jump right into what exactly is a swagger coach and what sort of experiences led you down the path to becoming a swagger coach?
I think I get to define what a swagger coach is because I
Yeah.
don't know anybody else who's a swagger coach. What I try and help people do is to reconnect with who they are authentically and
Mhm.
figure out how to use that as their superpower. I want people to understand that what makes them so crazy powerful is the stuff that's on the inside, not just how it shows up on the outside. And I want them to stop feeling insecure, feeling like they're imposters, and start
Mhm.
owning who they are so they can be super crazy comfortable in their skin and super powerful as a result.
Okay. And was there a moment that made you realize, like, you know what? I got to stop everything I'm doing. I want to become a swagger coach. Like, was there like a pivotal moment where you just said, yeah, I just got to go and become a swagger coach?
This was kind of the evolution of what I was doing before because I was running my
Hmm.
training company that's called Combustion,
Yeah.
and I along with my team were standing in front of these rooms like all over the world in all of these different countries, different
Mhm.
cultures, working with people at all levels. So I was working with CEOs, I was working with with VPs and managers and teams and stuff, and regardless of the subject matter that I was training, so it could have been leadership or creativity or
Okay.
communication, presentation skills, what I discovered that there was one common factor that was holding everybody back. And that was that they just didn't believe that who they were authentically was enough to allow them to have the success that they were dreaming of. They all believed that they had to put on this fake false front, that they had to pretend to be someone or something that they weren't, that there was this idea in their head of what someone who was super credible or super powerful looked like. And they were trying to fake that instead of trusting who they really were. And when I saw that happening time and time and time again, and saw what happened when I broke them down, because that's what I do. I
Mhm.
break them down and show them that who they really are is so much more powerful and that people will accept it. When I realized that, I went, oh, this is it. This is everything. Because this is
Mhm.
really at the root of everything that I was doing. Because you can train people on subject matter, but
Yeah.
if they don't believe that they're good enough at the end of the day, all the knowledge in the world isn't going to help them. That's a much
Sure.
deeper thing that they need.
Yeah, definitely like that sort of emotional mindset sort of thing. So, could you go ahead and straight out, I guess, define for us what swagger is for you?
Well, when you hear the word swagger, you think
Hmm.
of that arrogant, show offy, in your
Yeah, like
face, cocky guy swag.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
the gold chains.
Hmm.
It's the very male, machismo
Yeah,
kind of thing.
yeah.
And I mean, there are some people who are all about that and stuff, but in general, I don't think people are so attracted by that. I think that it's intimidating
Hmm.
and it's also bull.
Yeah,
We know it's not legit.
that's true.
So I have
Yeah.
redefined what swagger is. My definition is that swagger is the ability to manifest who you really are and hold on to it in the face of all of that psychological crap that's going to come for it, regardless of the situation or environment. So you've got
Mhm.
one face and you show up with that one face all the time. Doesn't matter if you're hanging with your friends or you're at work or you're with, someone you're trying to impress or people who already know and love you. You are the same person no matter what.
Hmm. Okay, so How is swagger, would you say, different from like either confidence or even self-belief, or is that sort of part of swagger?
Well, the thing that most people are seeking is that magical thing called confidence.
Yes.
Everybody thinks that that's going to be the solution to their problems. So I could just, come across as being more confident. In fact, if you Google how do I come across as more confident, the
Hmm.
last time I Googled it, because it changes all the time, there was about 368 million hits,
Hmm.
and most of them were about how to fake confidence when you didn't feel it, which, by the way, is really, really, really bad advice. It's really bad advice. Because
Really?
what happens, yeah, really bad advice. The whole fake it till you make it thing is like a prison of your own making. Because what happens is the thing that you are seeking, this confidence, does
Hmm.
not come from the outside. It only comes from the inside, and it can only come as a result of you having competence. Only when you have done something over and over and over again, and you know that no matter what happens, you know how to do it. Like once you drive a car, you know how to drive a car.
Yeah.
So you have confidence in driving a car. But until
Hmm.
you are, until you've done it enough times, until you've hit the highway, until you've, driven in the rain and the snow and situations where you've avoided an accident, you don't really have true confidence. You don't want to fake that you have confidence because
That's
that's a
true.
really bad idea,
You
right?
don't.
You want to drive at a safe speed. You want to take it easy. You want to not go on the highway when it's dangerous and
Yeah.
stuff. So only when you've done something over and over again will your brain, our brains are pretty resistant, will our brain start to
Yeah.
believe that, yeah, we got it. We got the baseline. We know what we're talking about. Someone could challenge me. I could stay. I know what I'm talking about. It's all good. That's when you gain legit confidence. But anytime you get thrown out of that zone, it could be because you're trying something new. You're trying
Yeah.
to move up in your career. You're trying to take a risk of some kind. You get thrown right back into that place of not yet having competence because you're going to
Mm.
have to do
Yeah.
it a bunch of times and rebuild it. So if you try and fake confidence, what it actually does is it limits your ability to gain competence. Because if you're walking
Mm.
around telling everybody, I got this, I know what I'm talking
Hmm.
about, I'm all good,
Yep.
then you're not going to be able to ask people for help.
That's
You're
true.
not going to ask them to
You
give
won't be
you
as open-minded.
input. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean that's worse. They refer to that as the Dunning-Kruger effect. There was a
Hmm.
big study that was done at Cornell University, and what they
Hmm.
found was that people who started to smoke their own crack, as it were, started to believe their own
Yeah.
hype, and really thought like they were full of it, but they were trying to
Hmm.
convince everybody that they had all of this amazing competence. What happened was, first of all, they lost the ability to make good decisions because those decisions weren't really
Yeah.
informed, and they had to make it up. So their decisions are crappy because they're not based on
Yeah.
good solid experience or competence or intelligence. To make it even worse, over time, they really did start to believe their own hype. And they convinced themselves that they were better, smarter, more adept, more capable than they were. And
I
that's a
see.
bad idea. We see that in politics all the time. It's a
Yeah.
really dangerous recipe, right? So,
Hmm.
that degree of humility that you need to have in order to be better is super important.
Yeah.
But there's this thing called self belief. And that's a
Okay.
whole different jam.
Mm.
Self belief does not require confidence. Self belief is just that unerring feeling that, you know what? I don't really know what I'm doing right now. I'm at
Okay.
this place in my journey. That's where I am. But I believe that I can push forward and I can kind of step off that cliff and I'm not going to die.
Mm.
I'm going to have the adventure of learning. I might hit a few branches on the way down, like things could happen,
Yes.
but I know that I'm not going to die. So I'm willing to take the risks that are required to get through this,
Yeah.
growing my competence thing. That's what
Mhm.
makes you a badass in this life, is that self-belief.
Yeah. Definitely. And I love you mentioned in other interview, you said when what is it? I think it was Looney Tunes, when what is it, the coyote looks down and that's when he
Yeah.
starts to fall down. I love that analogy.
Yes.
That's
Yeah.
really cool. Like talking about self-belief. As soon as he looks down, that's when he actually falls. Like
Yeah.
that's
Because
a
it's
brilliant
really
way to
that
look at
that
it.
the way that I want people to imagine it is, if you have the feeling that you're stepping off the cliff. We all know what that feeling
Mm.
is like oh my
Yes.
God, I'm doing this thing, I
Yeah.
don't know what I'm doing, right? You feel like you're going to die. The thing is, when you take that step off the cliff,
Mhm.
the ground has a way of coming up and meeting your foot. So you take a step and you go, oh, look, I'm walking. I'm walking here. I'm walking. And then you take another step and oh my God, the ground comes up to meet your foot. You're still walking. But if you look down, you're going to see air
Yep.
because the step will not reveal itself until you take it. So
Mm,
the courage that you have to have is to not look down, eyes front, self-belief, take the step and believe that the ground is going to come up to meet you. You probably don't want to run off the cliff because you know
yeah.
what I mean? Like that's just not
Yeah.
smart. But if you take a step after step, you go, okay, look, I'm still standing. This is awesome. Take a second, regroup. You
Yeah.
can walk all the way to the next goal. It's a beautiful
Mhm,
thing. Just don't
yeah.
look down and you got to know, you got to believe that that ground is going to come up and meet your foot.
Nice. Yes, I definitely agree. Makes sense. Now, I'm curious as to like just looking back in your life, would you say there was anyone in your life that had a deep impact on your personal swagger?
Oh, my mom. My
Your
mom's a
mom?
badass. Yeah, my
Yeah.
mom was a badass. And so my mom was someone who she wasn't your traditional mom in any way, shape, or form. She was always an entrepreneur. She always did her own thing. She was not the classic, stay-at-home mom who made cookies and who was always there to drive us to school. She was out traveling the world. She was doing her thing, running her business. And what she instilled in both my sister and I was the sense of anything is possible. We
Mm,
were told over and over and over again to never pretend to be anything that we were not because who we were was awesome and that the world would figure it out. We didn't have to change ourselves to fit into the world, that as long as we were good humans
mhm,
and we pursued our dreams and our place of purpose,
mhm.
we could do anything. And whenever we had doubts, which we did because we're human, we would say, oh, I wish I could be that person who was on TV, or I wish I could be a
Yeah.
singer, or I wish. And she would look at us and she would say, why not you? And then she would wait for an
Okay.
answer. My mother didn't play. She was like, and the answer is, and if we tried to give her some bull answer about why we couldn't, she would very quickly tell us why someone was going to get to do that cool thing. And
Mm,
if you didn't ask for it and you didn't put yourself forward and you weren't prepared to do the work, you were never
yeah.
going to get it. But that was the only
Hmm.
thing stopping you, is that you had to take that step off the cliff
And not look down.
and not look down, not look down. See,
Okay.
yeah, you're getting it. You're getting
Yeah,
it
yeah,
now.
definitely. Okay, so then how would you suggest, because you definitely someone with a lot of swagger, suggest for someone who's trying to take that first step towards developing their swagger and sort of their self-belief in themselves?
I think the important thing is to figure out really exactly where you're getting stuck. Because it feels
Okay.
like a mountain that needs to be climbed sometimes. You feel like, okay, I'm in this place of not feeling very confident or not
Hmm.
feeling comfortable speaking my truth,
Yeah.
or I feel like I'm being judged by the world. I feel like I'm not lovable. The real me isn't lovable. All that stuff that gets in
Hmm.
the way. It
Yeah.
can feel super overwhelming.
Hmm.
And the secret is to kind of do this little analysis on where is your swagger getting stuck. Because once you can, and it may be a whole variety of places. That's why I created this concentric circles model that identifies what I believe are the key swagger blockers. And
Hmm.
once you figure out where you get stuck the most, you can start working on that particular area. You don't have to eat the whole mountain, you
Yeah.
just want to take a little
One
bite,
little.
one little bite,
Okay.
and see how it feels. So that's, because I
Mm.
come from a training background, the book
Yeah.
is full of exercises because
Hmm.
I didn't want this just to be like this inspirational, like it's rah rah, come on everybody,
Yeah.
find your swagger, it's all good. Nah, that doesn't work. I wanted
Hmm.
it to be super practical, super
Oh, okay.
pragmatic, that was going to hold your hand step by step by step. Otherwise, I knew it would not work. So the
Okay.
first thing is self-awareness. And ain't nobody watching, nobody's judging. It's just you and the book, you and your swagger. And you just break it down and ask yourself, is it persona? Is it ambition? Is it
Hmm.
insecurity? Is it fear? Is it pain? Or is it a little bit of each one of them? Pick
Okay.
one and start working on that, because then you're going to see a change. You'll see a little change and you'll grow a little bit of courage and you'll go, ooh, okay, it works. This is
Yeah.
awesome. And then you'll take
Okay.
another little step and so on. And before you know it, you're starting to find
Yeah.
that swagger and you'll learn how to unleash it.
I see. So it's just sort of like showing up consistently and making those again tiny little steps of progress. Nice.
Yeah,
Okay.
because it's a journey. It's
Yeah.
not a one-time event. You know,
Yeah.
finding your
It's not a
swagger is
sprint.
not you wake up, yeah, you don't wake up one
Marathon.
morning and go, yeah, it's exactly. And
Okay.
anybody who's run a marathon, not me, but anyone who's run a marathon will tell you that. I mean, you know,
Yeah.
the first mile can be as hard as the 15th mile. It all depends on you, the kind of runner you are. And you can want to give up because it's exhausting. But you know that if you just keep going, you're going to get there. If you just put one foot in front of the other, it's inevitable. You're going to cross the finish line. And it's the same with swagger.
Okay. So you mentioned swagger blockers. So I'm curious, what have you found to be like perhaps the biggest one that holds people back?
I think it's different for everyone. I really do because
Okay.
we're complex human beings,
Yeah,
and I
true.
think that so much of our swagger limiters are based on our individual experiences. You know,
Hmm.
if you were raised in a household, for example, where you were told that, you know, people like us in our family, we don't really have those big dreams. We tend to
Okay.
take the safe jobs, and we tend to just, you know, just do something that has security and don't
Yeah.
dream too big. Or we're in a family where we didn't feel equal to our siblings, let's say, or
Hmm.
we really struggled in school and we got a really hard time from our teachers, for example, and we were told that we were never going to amount to anything and we weren't smart enough or whatever. All of this stuff just
Yeah.
takes root in us, and it becomes the story that we tell ourselves. And so the story that we've been telling ourselves is kind of the thing
Hmm.
that we need to unpack and figure out where it came from, and what's the result of that, you know. So
Okay.
I think that it's, you know, it's different for everybody. I've identified the blockers of persona, ambition,
Yeah.
insecurity, fear, and pain because they're pretty universal, but
Okay.
each one has its own, you know, shade
Like
and color and
intricacies.
where it
Yeah.
comes from. Yeah. So
Okay.
I mean, I wish that I had a, you know, this microscope that I could put everybody's soul under so I could see
Hmm.
exactly where. But I find that when we ask ourselves a lot of questions, and you kind of do the work, you start to go, yeah, that sounds like me. Yeah, that sounds like where I'm really stuck. You know, if, for
Okay.
example, you had really painful experiences, then it might be pain. If you were
Okay.
conditioned
Yeah.
to be fearful of the world, it could be
Yeah.
fear. If you didn't have a lot of reassurance in your life that you were good enough, it might be insecurity. If you validate yourself by success, your blocker might be ambition. If you're really freaking afraid of what people have to say about you and how they judge you, it might be persona.
Mm, okay. Nice. So then, because I've also found with narrowing down, I guess, like the values or kind of where you come from, it's very difficult to, I guess, come up with the question yourself. Like I know for me personally, trying to find questions, I have to either do a lot of just sitting down and trying to just think and see what pops in my mind, or I do also read a lot of books. So I found books tend to really help me think and narrow down sort of my questions. But I guess so then since it's very general for a lot of people, right? And as we said, different intricacies and whatnot. Is there any maybe question or set of questions that you found have been helpful for people to narrow down perhaps their blockers and to help them develop that swagger?
I mean, there are so many, and I
Yeah.
think
Okay.
it's not just sort of questions. I like people to take some kind of action, because
Mm,
when we take action, we are more
mm,
changed by it. So that's
yeah.
why I created exercise. It was like, okay, here, do this thing step by step. I'll give you an example
Okay.
of an exercise that I get people to do. I get them to write a letter to themselves
Hmm.
from that negative inner voice, from that inner saboteur. Because
Mm,
we all have one, right? We all have that little
yes.
voice that chirps in our head and
Hmm.
tells us why we're not good enough and why we're full of it and why people will
Yeah.
never like us or will never be successful or whatever your thing is. So I
Hmm.
get them to write a letter, and I say, just go full tilt. Don't hold
Hmm.
back anything. It's just for you and for me if I'm coaching them, but it's just for
Yeah.
you. And I want you to just let it rip. Pull that monster out of the closet, hold it up to the light, and you know. And I
Hmm.
love to give that voice give it a tone as well. Like mine
Hmm.
sounds like the Grinch. You know, dear loser, you don't know what you're talking about. You're an idiot. And you really get it all out of your system. Once you've written it down and it's on paper, it's there. That's kind of like the story that you've been telling
Hmm.
yourself, right?
Yeah.
Then what I get them to do is to write a rebuttal to the letter, but they're only allowed to use facts and proof points. not just opinions and no, I'm
Okay.
not. I'm
So
really
no
awesome.
emotions.
I mean, no emotions,
Okay.
facts. So go back through the facts of your life, go back through what you've accomplished, go back through anything that's a proof point to counter the voice. So, for example, let's say the voice says, "Dear loser, you don't know what you're talking about. You
Hmm.
have no formal accreditation to run a training company," which would be me, and that would be true.
Hmm.
And then I could go, "Well, um, I have spent the last 13 years traveling the globe training Fortune, 10 companies, and I've never had anyone complain about the quality of my training. In fact, we have won many awards. That's a
Okay.
fact. So that's just a fact. It's not an opinion. It's not, yes, I am, and I know what I'm talking about, and don't be mean to me. So you can go and you just break it down fact by fact by fact. So now you
Okay.
have this little sort of synopsis, this little resume of swagger that you have.
Hmm.
So now what we want to do is we want to learn to record over that negative tape or that negative voice
Yeah.
using facts.
Okay.
So what I get people to do is to take all those facts and distill them down into a little swagger mantra, right? And that
Okay.
swagger mantra is the thing that whenever that negative self-talk voice comes out, you go up, 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 and you immediately hammer back with your little distilled swagger mantra. You want to stop it having traction moving forward because some voice will play in your head. You can replace what plays in your head. And
Yes.
over time, what's going to happen is that new swagger mantra, that distilled series of facts, will be the voice that comes up. And you will literally give that negative voice a beat down. You'll beat it into submission and replace it with the fact.
I see. Okay. So swagger definitely isn't one of those where once you find it, you have it forever. It's more if you have to continuously sort of remind yourself and work with that swagger that you found.
Well, I think once you find it,
Hmm.
you know that it's there. So it never really goes away and you will never lose it. It'll have
Okay.
moments.
Yeah.
It'll have moments. Swagger will slip.
Okay.
Haters gonna hate,
Hmm.
and we're just human and we're gonna react. But the beauty is that once you have swagger, you know that you can come back to it and
Okay.
that you can sort of rekindle it. So you can have
Yeah.
bad days, you can
Okay.
have moments of
Yeah.
self-doubt, but you will no longer be crippled.
Okay.
Because you'll have seen that the facts of your life and the truth, your intention, your self-belief, your badassness is there,
Okay.
right? So
Yeah.
once you've got it, you will always have it. But like anything, ebbs and flows,
Yes. Okay.
comes and goes,
Yeah.
but never disappears. Never disappear on you.
Hmm. Okay. Okay. Interesting. Yeah. So the importance of that first step. So the first step is probably harder than even resetting back to that like first point, right? Because once you taken the first step, you get that experience and you can always go back to that. Okay. Interesting. So
Yeah,
then,
because I mean, look, when you're on the journey and it's
mm,
not yet solid yet,
yeah.
and you have some setbacks, people
Yeah.
talk crap about you, or your integrity is quite like it can be a million
Hmm.
things. You're going to go, oh, and you're going to
Yeah.
revert to what you're used to doing.
Hmm.
But over time, you realize that those things aren't working for you, and you have new things in your head and new
Yeah.
exercises, new tools that you can use. Because the book
Hmm.
is going to give you a toolkit. So
Yeah.
you'll have new ways to respond to the old challenges and the old voices that are playing. That's the great thing, right? Is that you're no
Hmm.
longer kind of victimized by the external stuff because you're more in control and empowered with the internal stuff.
Okay. Yeah. I love how like values and like habits are I found to be very similar in the sense of like so whenever I have to try and develop a new habit, you have to go ahead and try a bunch of these different things and then revert back to, well, okay, what is it that actually worked because you tried five different things and you didn't like four out of the five. So the
Yeah.
same sort of with your values and your swagger, you have to not necessarily be afraid to take the first step, go ahead and just try these few different things and see, okay, what worked for you and then sort of reset back. Nice. Okay.
Yeah, because swagger is not, it doesn't manifest in the same way for everybody. There's
Yeah.
not one way to show up with your swagger. It's going to be
Okay.
authentic to you, to your uniqueness, your individual
Oh,
personality.
okay. So
There's
it's not going to
not
be
a, there,
like this. Okay, so
no, 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 no.
oh,
If you're quiet, if you're chill, if you're introspective, if you're an introvert, it's going to
okay,
manifest really differently than if you're someone like me who's like in your face and all over the place, right?
yeah,
Someone it's really it's more about kind of self-awareness, and than it is about, it's like
Okay.
self-assuredness. It's the belief that whoever you are should not be changed by anybody else. So for example, if
Okay.
you're someone who is more internally focused, and you've got a boss at work who's saying, you got to be louder in meetings, and you got
Yeah.
to, get in more in people's faces and stuff, you go,
Hmm.
What I need to learn to do is to dial up my intensity, my own personality. I need to figure out how to make sure I'm getting heard. But I can get people to lean in. I don't have to pretend to be someone that I'm not in order to get them to hear me, right? I don't have to be
Hmm.
that in order to get validation or to be credible. I just need to find my own way of doing it.
Hmm. Okay. So then how does someone like in a more, I guess, either a professional setting or I guess even like what academia sort of setting, who has embraced their swagger, find that sort of balance between using the swagger, but then I guess sort of the expectations of either you're at work or you're at school, like balancing that swagger with sort of the expectations from others.
Well, I think there's a difference between the kind of human being and the human doing a little bit, because um, if you look at work, for example, the
Hmm.
one of the reasons that people will say, "Oh, I have to hide who I really am because otherwise I'm not going to be professional." That's not professional behavior. Nobody wants to see all of me, which is bull. Their professionalism is showing up on time. It's being respectful of your colleagues. It's
Yeah.
being accountable for the work that you do. It's about being accountable for your team. It's about, excuse me, taking your work seriously, but not taking yourself too seriously. There are a lot of ways to show up
Okay.
professionally without assimilating into some Borg, into like losing yourself in that process. So that applies to everything, because you think about the circle of the people that you know, and there are some people who are in your face, and there are some
Hmm.
people who are more laid back and quiet. Do you have less respect for the people who are laid back and quiet than you do for the loud and showy people?
Nope,
Nope,
not at
because
all.
it's just who they are. And in
Yeah.
many cases, the people who are
Okay.
quieter, the still waters run deep, that
Hmm.
what they're saying is, no, 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 it's up to you to lean forward to me. I don't need to
Yeah.
get my stuff all over you, right? So I actually find those people to be more interesting. I'm like, oh yes, okay, I'm gonna lean in and pay attention here because there's stuff going on.
Oh.
And they, if they're showing up in a way that's authentic to them and it's
Hmm.
consistent, and they're not going to be swayed by other people, the right people will recognize that that's amazing and they'll gravitate towards that. And the other people will not. And to hell with them.
Mm. Nice, very nice. Okay.
I love
So
it.
then,
Well, I'm watching you process. It's very
yeah, no,
cute.
I love it. It's great. It's like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because then I was curious,
Okay.
like, okay, like how can you use the swagger to influence like perhaps your team, whatever,
Oh,
or like
yeah.
your
Well,
colleagues,
the thing about swagger is that it is driven by truth, intention, and self-belief. And when people know that you are speaking your truth, they will trust you more. And when they trust you more, they're
Mhm.
willing to connect with you more. They're willing to share with you more. And the more we know about each other and the more we understand about each other, the more powerful the influence that we can have over each other. And I mean that in a positive way. You don't want to use your swagger powers for evil. You only want
Okay.
to use them for good.
Yeah,
So
so
for
if you have bad
example,
intentions,
yeah,
then
oh no, no, no.
okay.
That's bad swagger, not allowed.
Okay.
So truth is speaking what you believe needs to be said right now,
Hmm.
but only in a way that's going to be good for the collective. Because things can be good for you and for the collective at the same time. But if you're speaking your truth just so that you can get noticed, just so that you can look like you're a badass, or to bring somebody else down, or to try and take something away from somebody else, it's not going to fly. It's never going
Yeah.
to fly.
Okay.
No one has time for that. And if your intention is not to be a positive contributor to the collective or the greater good,
Mhm.
then shut up,
Yeah.
you know? And what people forget is that what's good for them can also be good for the collective. So if you are trying to advance your career, for
Mhm.
example, if you speak your truth in ways that you believe are good for the collective, then they're going to recognize that as your contribution, and thus your leadership potential is going to be recognized. You're going to end up leading from the sides. You don't necessarily have to lead from a leadership position. That's how you become a natural leader,
Okay.
is by saying, I'm just going to speak my truth. I'm going to have the courage to do that. I'm going to have respect for my colleagues. I'm going to stick up for people. I'm going to shield them from things. I'm going to work really hard to make sure that we succeed as a collective. All of those things are going to be the keys to success at the end of the day anyway. Right. So, but if your intention is to do it just for you,
Yeah.
nobody is going to have your back. Nobody is going to support you in that process. They're going to find you out, and then you're on your own. And as a
Yeah.
leader, when you do that as a leader, when you behave like that, not only are you modeling what you want your people to do,
Hmm.
right? You
Yeah.
want your people to be able to speak their truth. You want them to be open. You want them to bring their full selves to the party, not to limit what they bring to work. You want them to bring it all. You want emotions to be safe territory. You want people to feel like they're not being judged negatively and all of that good stuff. So when you do that as a leader, it's good for everyone. And when you do that as part of a team, it's good for everyone. And you don't have to limit your swagger as long as your intention is not just to do everything for yourself.
Okay. So, with your experience with working with leadership and managers and pretty much everyone, I'm curious then, what would you say is like the most important value you found for a leader?
Um, I Again, it's really hard to dictate what values are important for other people, and I would never be so arrogant as to dictate. But I
Mm-hmm.
do think that connection is really important. My friend Brant Menzor, who wrote the book
Hmm.
Black Sheep,
Yes. Loved it. Yeah.
right? He's an amazing guy, and
Hmm.
very often when you look at, if you know when they do an assessment on people, and they come up with all kinds of things, love and family and community and faith and all of these things, what you realize is that when you distill it down, it's really about connection. That's what you're
Yeah.
saying is important to you. And if you truly are driven by the desire to connect, then you have time for it. You have patience for it. You have empathy. The another person is as important to you as you are to yourself. And all of that stuff leads to better community, whether it be at school, whether it be at work, whether it be in life. So I think that if you have a genuine desire, if you are driven by the value of connection, then it can make all that other stuff way, way easier, as opposed to
Hmm.
being driven by, power, for example, or your key value being, you know, intelligence. I think
Yeah.
then it sort of holds you above other people, because not everybody is as smart as everybody else, or people are smart in different ways. So the
Yeah.
connection thing will allow you to appreciate and respect that, and it's better for the
Hmm.
collective.
And definitely speaking with like other coworkers from like maybe different departments who have different managers, leaders. Yeah, that's definitely like I would say the thing that sticks with them the most. Like they would say, "Oh, there was this one time I was really sick, or perhaps my kid had to go to the hospital," and they were like, all they remember is that their managers told them, "Don't even worry about it, just go take care of it," instead of being like, "Oh, you have to go and put in all this paperwork for this or for that." Like,
Yeah,
and so that motivated them to, in a sense, okay, well, when it's time to go ahead and do work, well, we're going to go to work as a team. I don't mind working an extra hour or two because we're
that's
all
right.
here together, connected together to get our overall goals accomplished. So nice.
Absolutely, absolutely. Wisdom there. Wisdom, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. All right. So what's something new you are currently learning now?
Well, I'm learning how to market a book, which
Nice.
is super challenging and super fun, and doing it in the midst of a pandemic. So that's extra
Yes.
super fun.
Yes.
I'm also it's fun because I'm spending a lot more time on social media than I did before,
Hmm.
because my company was really a company that was built out of referrals and word of mouth. We didn't spend a lot of time marketing the company, even though I'm a former advertising creative director and I've got a lot of
Yeah.
previous experience in how to market and so on. I never really had to do it other than to build the brand of my company. So I was a little lax on social because I
Mm-hmm.
didn't really need to. But now that I'm building the Swagger brand, which is very much associated with me, I've had to go nuts on social. And I gotta say, I'm having a lot of fun because, as mentioned earlier, I don't take myself that seriously. So
I love
I have,
following your account. It's great. Like I find all these like fun little reels and pictures and stuff. It's a lot of fun. So I
yeah, and
definitely
it's not,
appreciate it.
it's not like that's the thing is that um, I just made a video for IGTV today talking
Mhm,
about again, you don't have to take yourself so seriously in order for the work that you're doing to be taken seriously. And I know that part of that connection is through laughter, it's through empathy, it's through a sense of play and all that kind of stuff. So I'm more in service of my message than I am of my own ego, like
mhm.
I'll do anything. I just want to have fun with it and make it enjoyable for people because nobody owes me anything. Nobody has to follow me. Nobody has to read this book. But I know that if I can get this book into as many hands as possible, it has the power to really, really change lives. I believe that with my whole soul, or I wouldn't be doing it. So I'm in service of the message of the book, and I'll do just about anything to get that message across.
Nice. I love that you're serving the people instead of the people trying to like serve you. Like
Nope.
I love that. I
If
get
I
it.
could, honestly, if I could, I would just give away the book to anybody who wanted to read it. That's what I would love. So, should I win the lottery? We're going to make
Mhm.
that happen. That's a
Okay.
guarantee. I would do that and then some. I would just give the book to everybody. I would do whatever I could to unleash as much swagger as possible because I believe that a world filled with swagger is a much happier, much better place. And I'm for it. I'm all for it.
Awesome. Awesome. And the book's up there. I absolutely love the cover. I saw the colors. And I was like, wow, that looks awesome.
Yeah,
So
so jumps
congrats.
off the page for sure.
Yes, it definitely pops. It's like, whoa, ooh, that looks cool.
Yeah,
Looks
yeah.
interesting. So then I'm curious, what question or mantra do you ask yourself every day?
Well, I still do the why not me.
Okay.
I still do the why me. And I also ask myself a lot, what's the worst thing that can happen? Because the answer is usually nothing that
Hmm.
bad.
Yeah,
What's the
that's
worst
true.
thing that can happen? I would rather get it out of my system and figure out the answer than have it rolling around in my head. That's one of my tricks, is just
Okay.
get it out of your head, play it out. And usually, when you start to play it out in reality in terms of the worst thing that can happen, the worst thing is actually not that
Yeah.
bad. And it certainly isn't worth you not taking,
Hmm.
getting on the ride. I'd rather get on
Yeah.
the ride.
Yeah. See what happens. We always tend to play up like this whole thing in our head, and then we actually ask ourselves, well, what is the worst that could happen from this?
Yeah.
No, nothing,
I
nothing
haven't
crazy.
people like you when in your head, it's like,
Uh-huh.
I'm going to end up homeless on the street. And then you go, whoa, whoa, hang on a second. And when you start to play it out in real life, you realize that the worst thing that can happen is you might have to have a do over. you know, you
Yeah.
might have to go, well, that didn't work. Let me try this instead. And, any entrepreneur will tell you, you're probably going to have to do that 25 times anyway to figure out exactly what you want to do. So just go for it. The longer you wait,
Mhm.
the longer it takes to get the results that you're looking for. So what's the worst thing that could happen? Life is
True.
long. I've learned
Yeah.
life is long.
Yeah, yes, it is. So then, and where can people go ahead and get in touch with you or your book? Or I know you have a website.
Yeah, you can find all things Leslie M, swagger coaching, all the stuff about kind of what I can do for you at lesliem.com, and that's spelled LESLIEEHM.com.
Yes.
You can check out all the book stuff at swaggerthebook.com. I tried to make
Okay.
that really easy.
Hmm.
And if you want to just come and laugh, follow me on social. I mean, I try and drop some wisdom bombs too. Fair to
Hmm.
say.
Yeah,
It's a
I
combination
think
of
you've done like quotes, right? There's like
yeah.
sometimes you'll have
So
quotes and then you have like your
I
little
got,
funny reels.
yeah, I got all
Great.
the stuff. I got excerpts from the book. I've got all kinds of fun stuff. So that's on Instagram. I'm at Leslie M Speaks. You can also follow me on LinkedIn. That's at Leslie M. On Twitter at Leslie M. And Facebook at Leslie M
Okay.
Speaks. And if you want to have some fun,
Hmm.
go to swaggerthebook.com and right off the homepage, no obligation, you can take your own proof of swagger assessment. It's 10
Yes, I
questions.
was
You
looking
score
at that.
yourself. Yeah, so you got to do it. And
Yeah.
then once you've read the book and you
Yeah.
start to do the work, you
Hmm.
can take the assessment again and
All right.
see how has your swagger
Yeah.
moved?
Okay.
What's going on? So
Cool.
you can do that as well.
Awesome. Cool. And I look
The,
forward to taking it twice then.
yes, do it twice. And the book comes out
Cool.
May 10th.
May 10th.
So I don't know. We'll see if this is depending on when people are listening to this, the book may be out already. You can get it on all good book resellers or booksellers. So your Amazons, your Indigos, your Barnes and Nobles, your Books a Million, all of that stuff. It's going to be
Cool.
everywhere.
Awesome. And then just last, like, is there anything I could do to go ahead and better serve you?
Oh my God, I love you. I don't know. The best thing you could do
Hmm.
is unleash your swagger for the world. Because what I
All right.
think it sounds to me like you've got a fair bit already. So you sound like a pretty self-aware dude. So I think that spread the message of
Sure.
swagger
Yeah.
to everybody because I think it's
Hmm.
something they need to hear, and keep giving your platform to interesting people. And don't worry about the resume. Listen to
Cool.
their ideas. I think that's
Yes.
important because
Powerful
everybody's got to
ideas.
build the resume. They
Hmm.
might not have it yet, but they may be the next great thinker. So I
Oh,
judge people based on their thoughts and ideas more so
mhm.
than I do the resume. So that's something you could
Nice.
do.
Wow. Yes, definitely. I love ideas. So, wow, what a great way to end it. I
Yay!
definitely appreciate you coming on the podcast and taking the time to discuss your powerful ideas. Truly, truly, a lot of wisdom dropped, a lot of swagger dropped. So, absolutely loved it and enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having. What a great way to spend an hour.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. You have a great day. All
Okay,
right.
you too. Take care.
Take care.